what's happening on this piece of land that we currently today are stewards of? What's happening on this land 50 years from now? And then what is it that we can do right now to shape the future that we want to see happening here 50 years from now? Is this thing just boarded up with a fence around it and it's empty and fallen down? Is it turned into some sort of completely unrecognizable housing development that's just serving nobody but wealthy people and wealthy investors? What is it? Like, what's going on here, right? And then envision what we want or what could be here. And it probably is a few different things. But let's set that path now. Like this, we are the people today. We are the only people actually right now that have the opportunity to set that path.
Today, we're excited to have Mark Elsdon on the show. Mark is one of the nation's leading voices in faith-based development, impact investing, and the strategic stewardship of church assets. A pastor, entrepreneur, author, and consultant, he helps congregations reimagine their land, buildings, and financial resources as instruments for community transformation rather than liabilities to maintain. His work demonstrates how churches can leverage underutilized property to create affordable housing, strengthen neighborhoods, generate sustainable ministry revenue, and build partnerships that advance God's kingdom. Through his leadership with Threshold Sacred Development and Rooted Good, along with his books We Aren't Broke and Gone for Good, Mark has become a national thought leader, helping churches unlock the hidden potential of their assets for lasting community impact. Let's join the conversation.
It's great to be with our dear friend, Mark Elsdon of Rooted Good. Mark, how you doing this morning?
I'm great. Good to be with you. This is fun.
Excellent, man. Excellent. We are so grateful that you have given us time today just to have this conversation. Everybody knows you, Mark. You are one of the leading voices in the whole faith-based development community. We are grateful for the incredible work that you're doing. And just tell us a little bit about yourself, because there may be people in this space who have not necessarily met you yet, or maybe have read your stuff but need to hear more. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, this is fun. Thanks for the invitation. I got into this work as a pastor. So, like you, I'm a minister. I'm in the Presbyterian tradition, and ended up falling into, I guess you could say, God's work in my life in some way, into developing property at the University of Wisconsin Madison campus, campus ministry center about 3 years ago. I have to do some math to figure that out now. It's been a while. My wife, my spouse, Erica Lou, and I were called there together as co-pastors, and we led this ministry that was dormant and dead, and had a beautiful history, but had no students involved, and had a real crisis of finances, and a crisis of future, and a crisis of direction, and all those things. And the board there had a powerful vision that they were drawing upon from a historical vision to have student housing on the site. So it was a beautiful old falling down Gothic church building that was a student church basically, and there was an empty parking lot. Well, a parking lot, but otherwise empty cars, and that was it. Right behind it, that this organization had owned for 80 years, and they had a vision for a long, long time for student housing there, decades and decades, but it never happened. And we just happened to kind of come in at the moment where that thing came together. And so, it's a long, long story. Lots of people involved. Certainly wasn't just us at all. We just happened to sort of be in the moment there. But helped lead that effort to develop a 250 bed, roughly 7-story, $17 million student housing facility that opened in 2007, so a long time ago now. And I should say, my wife,
beautiful.
It was really a fun project. We ended up, funnily enough, my older daughter is just graduated from college, and we ended up designing that building with the architects around our kitchen table when she was like 6 months old in a crib or whatever, hanging out in our house. And the architects came over and helped us design this building. and it opened the year our younger daughter was born. So it's really intimately connected to our life and our
Yeah.
family and so on. And my wife still runs Press House, so she's the executive director there at the organization still. And I've since stepped away to do more and more of this work, as you noted, just around trying to do whatever we can do, whatever I can think of to help move forward this broad kind of church land, church property, church buildings, using these gifts for God's purpose in the world, using these assets that we have, and trying to figure out how to do that better,
Yeah.
how to do that faster, how to do more of that, how to do it deeper, all of that. So that's what I work on now.
Yeah. Just piggybacking off of that really quickly. Did you already have prior experience in like development or like how were you just able to, I mean, obviously with the different partnerships and collaborations, but the confidence to go in and build this housing development. Kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, your comment, your word right there, partnership. That's the key. I mean, no, I didn't. I didn't have that. I didn't even know I would enjoy it. I didn't even know. My wife and I were hired to be the pastors there.
Right.
Right,
Um,
right.
but but as as a lot of people know, what being a pastor today means is real different than what it meant, 30,
Right,
40 years ago.
right.
It requires often a sort of an entrepreneurial spirit to it that's really different, right? And
Right.
so that's what we did. We just had a ton of partners. We had a good board. We had good local support. We had consultants that we were paying, that were partnering with us. And then you bring in the team just builds and builds. I mean, anyone that's done
Yeah.
this knows that, right? You've got all sorts of experts. So I think my greatest gift, honestly, in that moment, well, probably was two things. One, naivety. In other words, if I'd known all of what it was going to take, I think I probably would have not even started because it's such a big lift, right? It's such a big challenge. Um, and so there was some real advantage to not knowing that and just to be sort of going in like, okay, we'll just take the
Right.
next step. The other thing though was just I just love learning and asking questions. And I still do that. Like so if there's something I don't know, I'm happy to just immediately be to say I don't know this thing. Who knows this thing? Who knows
Right.
something about this? Who can I call locally, nationally, wherever? And just my wife would joke I'm kind of an information leech. I like find somebody who knows a little something and then try to like learn a little bit from them and learn a little bit over here and integrate
Right.
those things. So that's what we did. And so no, I mean really I learned development sort of by doing it.
Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
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 So, in your journey through ministry and entrepreneurship, social impact, things like that, talk about some of those experiences that led you to see that church property and the financial assets were opportunities for ministry.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot to that. I mean, but again, this particular start for me came with an organization that already had this idea, and it had been around since the 1920s, and it had been resurrected many different times. When we arrived in 2004, this idea had been re-emerging amongst the board and the leadership that what about developing this property? And there has to be a new way forward. Like this organization cannot function financially the way it is. It had massive deferred maintenance and running a negative budget every year. It just wasn't a viable future the way it was. And so there was sort of this core base idea of just we've got to figure out a new financial model, right? So let's put something on the property that can generate some revenue. But Erica and I were really not satisfied, you might say, not interested in that being the only thing that we were doing. And partly because it's really hard. And I just was not interested in giving my life to sort of a pure financial
Maintenance.
play,
Right.
just a pure
Yeah.
like dollar play,
Okay.
especially in the context of a nonprofit setting. I mean, it was just like this just didn't make sense. So that it was clear to us that this had to be a ministry play, a mission play, not just a dollars and cents thing. So what really ended up emerging was this realization that doing social enterprise or development or sort of money well, while integrating it with missional impact and purpose is really powerful. But it's got to be both. I mean, so the whole reason for this was to impact the lives of the thousands of students that we serve now, and the tens of thousands that have been served over the decades. That's the only reason to do it, right? In
Yeah.
my view,
Yeah,
at least.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's not worth it.
It's not.
It's
You're right.
not. What's the point?
Right. Right.
But also, it has to work. Like it has to be rigorously developed and effective as a business.
Hmm.
Otherwise, all of the money side just undermines the mission. So
Yeah.
the money can either help the mission flourish or it can like totally collapse it. And so it's this integration of the two, the money and mission together, that I think is sort of the beauty of it and makes it work and makes it have life, makes it have a future, makes it viable. Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to ask Mark because you're doing a lot of great national work, even international work in Europe. And ironically, it was in Europe where we met in London doing 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 this work, and it's been a great relationship ever since. As you know all too well, there are many churches across the country that are surrounded by communities that are facing housing shortages and other inequities, and their neighborhoods are declining and the like. But they're sitting on significant land and sitting in significant buildings, many that are maybe falling apart or aged or whatever. How do you feel we arrived at this disconnect? How do you feel that we arrived at this disconnect of a church in a community with all these assets, but not necessarily using them? How do you feel this came about?
Mm. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of ways to answer that, right? I mean, I'm not a historian or a sociologist, but I know that there's a thread of kind of institutional church growth and building that we went through this period of time that really peaked in the late 1950s, early 1960s, in the United States at least. And it was just this period of just growing institutions, growing entities, building, I mean, at least, I think almost all but one or two of the Presbyterian churches in Madison, here where I live, were built in that period, right? It was
Right.
like find a neighborhood, build a church, find
Right.
a neighbor, kind of
Right.
thing,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
At least the sort of traditional denominations, that's the way they functioned. Obviously, non-denominational churches are a little different, but
Hmm.
basically there was this like, let's just find spots, build them, and we kind of overbuilt. I mean, honestly, I think in a way, or we built for like an unending trajectory of growth, which just isn't a thing. I mean, that just doesn't work. There's nothing in life, in nature, that just grows ever, forever. And if it is, it's not a great thing usually. It's like
Hmm.
cancer or something. Like there aren't things that like
Yeah.
typically do that, right?
Right.
But we sort of that's the way we went about it. And in the process too, I think we probably, to some extent, at least in my denomination, lost a bit of view of like, what are we about? It became this institutional thing, like building these huge buildings and building these huge structures and all these layers and all this this and that. And we lost a little bit the rootedness in community and in being present in our neighborhoods. And that's what we do. Um, I mean, there's all sorts of theological things going on too, right? And
Right.
like, what are we
Right.
about? Who are we? Is what is the life of faith even? Is it a life lived out? Is it a life in our head? I mean, there's all sorts of stuff going on there,
Right.
um, but somehow now we're at this point where we have a lot of assets and we're just not really using them the way we could. I mean, that's the bottom line, I think, at this point. And in some ways, I'm a little less interested in just personally in interrogating how we got here as to
Right.
where we can go next, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
people that should be studying that, thinking about that, but that
Right.
I'm much more like, all right, where are we
Where we gotta
headed?
go? Right.
Right, where can we
Right.
go? All right, here we are. So let's figure out now what we can do with all this stuff that we've got and all these aging buildings and all this land in amazing locations all over the United States, everywhere. I mean, cities, suburbs, rural, there's, in Wisconsin, there's two institutions you're going to find in every small town, no matter how small:
Right.
the bar
Right.
and the church, right?
Yeah. Folk gonna find the
There's probably
bar.
three
That's right.
bars and two churches. That's our
That's
ratio
right.
here in
Right.
Wisconsin. But
Yeah.
right, but they're going to be there everywhere, even if there's like a town of 10 people, you're going to have that, right? And so that literally
Yeah.
all over the country.
Across the
So what
street
are we
from each
doing with
other.
these spaces?
Right.
Yeah, across the street from each other, exactly, right.
In my
Yeah,
birth town, of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, there was actually a church that closed and a bar took it over.
yeah.
And and it was called the Altar. And I was like, whoa.
Oh, okay.
Now the bar has closed down. So it's like,
Oh,
yeah, it's
interesting. Yeah.
like, so, so you talk about, you want to focus forward. And I think that's great. We all want to do that. How do we go forward?
Yeah.
Where's the,
I mean,
where's the starting place for you?
well, the starting place for sure is again this missional question, like why are we doing, what are we about, and why. Um, that's the starting place for me. I think it's an opportunity not only to deal with real estate. I mean, so I find this so interesting because a lot of the questions and a lot of the work, it just sort of revolves around real estate and development, which are all that's all real and all important. But again, it's really more fundamental than that. It's like, what are we doing? What are we about? And when I say we, the church, like, what are we trying to do and be in the world? And so, in some ways, it's an opportunity to let reform happen in our own, in the church. So to return to some things, sometimes like struggle, pain, loss, shrinking. Those things they're not without difficulty, but they're also opportunities, right? And I never want to sort of discount the pain that people experience when their beloved home church closes or whatever. That's some
It's
real
real.
stuff there.
Yeah.
But broadly speaking, it's also sometimes those are moments of opportunity to think, okay, like how do we do this differently? And and when it was all just humming along and we were all just, money was flowing and this and that, it was sort of easy to just ignore what maybe wasn't fully life-giving in those moments and in those settings. We're now faced with that in a new way, and it's a new opportunity to sort of think about it differently and move
Yeah.
forward differently.
Yeah.
It's a new opportunity to do things and connect with community need in just such a deeper way. Like you said, I mean, we're talking about affordable housing or things like that. I mean, that I'm working with a church in Madison that has been connected to some community organizations, nonprofits for a number of years, where they've been learning about housing need and affordability crisis that we have going on in Madison. And the church has been learning about it, and they've been giving to it and volunteering at these organizations. And but just in the last year and a half, 2 years since I started working with them, they're now seeing that they actually can solve this problem to some extent with their land, right? And so we're moving into a 130 unit affordable housing development that we're going to do for them on their site. And now it's a completely different story than just sort of connected to a nonprofit. All great, and that they're still going to remain that way, but they're now integrating all of what they're learning and hearing about and sort of caring about with regard to this crisis of affordability and this need for housing. They're integrating that with this land that they
Yeah.
literally have,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're integrating with that with their future as a congregation, which was frankly kind of in question. Like, was there going to be one? And all that's now coming together to create a whole new sort of vision for what they're going to be and what this land is going to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback on that, when you talk about the work that you've done with some of these churches, do you mind just kind of giving us some insight into how your organization partners with these churches to understand what a solution could be, or, whether it's them using their assets or not for community transformation? Or a revival or reform. How do you partner with that organization, that church, and what are some of the tools? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great question. And to be totally honest with you, we're still trying to figure it out all the time. So, I mean, a lot of this work is like just literally trying to figure out how do we help and where do we help and in what way. So I really don't want to overstate that we've got this all figured out and we've
Yeah.
got some magic answer, because that's not the way I think it works, and that's not where we're at. But I work with two different organizations. They're really closely connected, but they're two independent organizations. Rooted Good, which is a national nonprofit that supports congregations and denominations and foundations and others with resources. And these resources we have an accelerator we call the Good Futures Accelerator. And it's basically a social enterprise accelerator that it was tailored for church leaders to use to help them figure out what to do with their buildings or land that impacts their neighborhood and also generates some revenue in a sustainable way. And that leads to kitchen entrepreneurship programs and new business incubators, co-working spaces, housing, all sorts of things, right? And then we have all these how-to guides: how to develop well, how to sell well, how to rent well, how to partner well. One of our favorites that we're really pressing. We're building one this year: how to merge well, for churches that are
Ah,
thinking about merging.
oh
And
wow, yeah, and that's
that'll be out by the end of the year. So
oh yeah, that's
we're
gonna be
trying to
good.
answer these questions that people have, right? Every one of these resources is a process guide, not an answer book. And every one of them is really deeply predicated upon the agency of the local church. So the way we work, we never come in and say, you do this. That's just not the way we work. We just do not believe that's the way churches are, or that God wants to work through churches. We really come in and we sort of invite them into self-reflection and into neighborhood listening, and trying to connect who they are with what's going on in the neighborhood. It's not easy, and a lot of these churches haven't done that for a very long time. I mean, they really struggle sometimes with
Right.
that, especially the neighborhood listening
Hmm.
part of it, right? The
Yeah.
like getting out and actually
Yep.
connecting to their community
Yeah.
and actually trying to understand. Some of them are really disconnected, but the process helps them try to do that, and it can take a little while, but it's critical. It's the only way it works, I think. And then my other organization, Threshold Sacred Development, does the actual development work. We primarily are working in Wisconsin at the moment, although we're trying to figure out how to help in other places just because we keep getting asked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every week we get requests to help in X, Y, or Z way. And most of the time we can't, we just don't have the capacity. But in Madison and in Wisconsin, we're able to actually take the idea that the church has and turn it into reality. So I think we're I don't know, we're probably about $80 million of work either
Wow.
in construction or in development or in the pipeline right now
Great.
in the Madison area. And it's really always we go in and we say, what are the needs of the community that this church has identified that they want to connect to, and sort of the opportunities and the gifts and where God is working in the community. What is the church? What does it sort of need to get out of this? Because I'm also a realist. Like the church needs something usually. Like some problem needs to be solved, right? It might be money, it might be just a building that's fallen down that they got to figure out what to do with. It might be they want to just get rid of the property in a good, beautiful way, right? Whatever it is, like they've got something they're trying to deal with, right? So connecting the neighborhood issues with the churches, and then with what's feasible, right? I mean, that's when
Mm-hmm.
you get back into the real
Mm-hmm.
estate development part, like what's actually possible here, because there's a lot of churches that have this idea that they can build deeply affordable housing, make a ton of money, renovate their space, do
Right.
X, Y, and
Right.
Z, and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa! Like, there's no way that's all going to happen on this tiny piece of land that's a half acre or whatever. Like, that's just. I'm sorry.
Right.
I wish it worked that way, but it's
Right.
not going to work, right?
Right.
So we're trying to come to it in the middle of that triangle of community need and connection, church sort of need and feasibility. And right in the middle of that is where we're working. Like, how do we
I
build
love that.
projects that actually do that in a beautiful way?
Yeah, I love that. So, with the two organizations and all of your experience, partnerships and ecosystems, right? When you think about successful faith based development, who are some of the essential key partnerships that are required around the table to make these things happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think we're sort of seeing, certainly every situation's different, but obviously the church itself has got to be connected at some level. Although there are different ways. Some churches are much more active, and some churches are much more happy to kind of let partners lead and they sort of shape the direction of it, right? So again, I'm working with two really different ones right now. One where the church is owning and operating the entire development that we're doing for them, and they're like really active in it. And then another one where the church is really basically partnering with us, and they're going to operate a small portion of the space, and then they're setting the direction of the land and then the future of it. But so then a development partner of some kind, right? That's aligned in some way. I mean, I always that's transparent, that's straightforward, that's telling you what's actually going on. I think probably that's going to be willing to take some kind of a, you know, more concessionary development fees to make projects work. I mean, you know, essentially, if a developer is really going to be extractive, it's going to be tough to do much good work on a piece of land because all the value creation is going to just flow to that person. Increasingly, we're seeing the need for investors that are similarly aligned because we were just doing an exercise the other day. The amount of rent that a person pays that's basically going to investors in a real estate project is kind of mind blowing, actually.
Yeah.
It's most of it. So in a typical real estate project, most of the wealth creation, value creation going on there, and rent extraction, you might say, if it's a rent product, is going to the investors who have done nothing to the project except give their money to it, right? And then they just make money off of it. So there's increasingly a sense that aligned money is needed for this stuff to really be good and not to be just kind of mediocre. Obviously, cities and municipalities, towns have to be, also involved to some extent. And there's a whole movement around UGB legislation, yes, in God's backyard, and these efforts to kind of address zoning reform and land use comprehensive plans, all the things that kind of make that happen. That's important too. And then you start going down the list, of course, to architects and contractors and all the other parts and players. And most of these projects also end up involving other social service organizations, I would say, right, or nonprofits, because a lot of times these partnerships require other people involved to sort of make them really thrive and flourish. One of them there's 30 nonprofits involved in the community center that we're building for this church, and so a lot of different players involved. But fundamentally, these are never done by a church alone.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you know this. Like churches, if they're thinking we're doing this all,
right,
then that's just not the way.
It's not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And then how do you, when it comes to, your relationships with the churches and these partnerships, what does building that trust look like? Or when two companies or orgs don't necessarily speak the same language, how have you seen building that trust looks like with different entities or the church and other orgs, partnerships?
Yeah. I mean, I've actually been really interested to learn. So my Threshold Sacred Development is a partnership that I have with a multi-generation developer in the area. And so I've been learning a lot about just development. And that group would describe development, even just pure secular market rate or just kind of pure business development, as basically a business that's trading in trust. It's really not actually about dollars or about land. It's about trust.
Wow.
And it's trust everywhere. It's trust between the developer and its financiers, its investors, its lender. It's trust between the contractor and its subcontractors, right? And it's trust between the city approval process and the city folk and the developer. And of course, there's always like elements of this that have to get worked out in contracts and in legal agreements and in the sort of the messy or minutia of it or whatever, the kind of not as fun parts of it. And that's all true. But fundamentally, good development really is all about trust, actually. And how you do that, that's a bit of a trickier question.
It's an art form,
right?
isn't it?
It's time. It is an art form. I think that's right. And it's time. It's delivering what you say you're going to deliver. It's trying, it's being honest. I think it's being straightforward. I mean, a lot of the developers in our area that people trust, it's not always that they're kind of the flashiest or have the, most like amazing website, whatever. It's that they just are honest,
Hmm.
and where things go wrong, they say when things go wrong, and when things go well, they share when things go well. I mean, it's like a real, it's just, it's that kind of
Some
thing.
mutual
And so,
accountability. Yeah. A
yeah, it's
mutual
some mutual
accountability. Yeah.
accountability. It's not blaming other people. It's
Right.
every project's complicated. Things always go wonky here or there, and just being real about that, and working through that. All of that stuff. I just think that's real. I just think it's really interesting that's the way a lot of folks, I think, that do this work regularly think about it.
Yeah.
That's really what they're actually doing. Yeah.
That's great. I want you to now think about yourself 20 years ago, but you are where you are now. But think about if you could be, if you were you 20 years ago, knowing then what you know now, what would the playbook be? What would the playbook be that you would want to offer? Let's say you mentored yourself 20 years ago with what you already know now. What would the playbook be that you would offer to a pastor who was in your shoes 20 years ago as to how to really start a faith-based development initiative? What would you tell them that they initially need to do to get off the ground and rolling?
Mm, it's a very pastoral question
Hey, hey,
there.
hey, hey, you know.
It's a good one. Yeah, I mean, one of the first things that comes to my mind actually is probably to take myself a little less seriously.
Uh-huh.
So it's not really an answer like a playbook answer. It's more of a like just trust the process a little bit more.
Hmm.
I think one of the struggles that I see um, happening, and it's very natural, and I think I was there too with church leaders trying to do this work, um, is trying to have it all figured out so early. So like these processes, they take time and they unfold. I mean, you know this real well. They take time and they unfold,
Yeah.
and what you're really, I think, trying to do is the next right step. I mean, you're sort of have the end destination in mind, and you're really clear about what we're trying to do. But the exact pathway through the forest or whatever it might be, if, towards that is not super clear. And you're kind of taking the next steps as you make your way. It feels a bit meandering. It feels a bit, uncertain. Things are kind of coming at you from all sides. Some surprise landmark thing or something where it shows
Right,
up and like,
right.
right. And if you're trying to like plot every single step of that path from the beginning all the way through, it's going to be tough, because that's just not the way this sort of development thing works. And so I think just being a little more relaxed about that
Okay.
Hmm.
actually
Okay.
has helpful, and a
Okay.
bit more just recognizing that that's what's going on. Um, I've been actually doing some writing recently, about development as a game of bananagrams. I don't know if you guys play bananagrams at all. It's like a word
Bananagrams.
game.
Hmm.
Yeah, it comes in a little banana-shaped pouch, and it's little letters. It's a lot like Scrabble,
Okay.
except it's not like Scrabble at
Oh,
all. So in
wow.
Scrabble, you lay down your tiles on the board, and
Hmm.
they don't move, right? You lay down a word, someone lays down a word, and so on, and that's it. In bananagrams, you play out your tiles, but then you're allowed to pick them back up and reform them into new words. And in fact, the only way you can win is if you do that. And I lose this game to my 19-year-old daughter
All the
every time
time.
I play because I lay the word out and then I'm like stuck with it. Like I can't change it. I don't know why. But she just lays it out and she gets a new letter and she just takes off two or three of the words and reforms them into two or three different
Hmm.
words each time, and then she can win. That's what development's like. Like you're constantly getting new information, new difficulties, new opportunities, new partner shows up, new money shows up. or a new problem shows up, and you're constantly like adjusting to that. And so I think one of the things that I find church people struggle with a little bit is that reality of it.
Okay.
And so I think again, I would go back to myself and just be like, okay, just
Relax.
relax a little bit. I mean, because you got to there's a lot of grit, you got to work hard,
Right.
but relax a little bit in the process,
Right.
recognizing that what happens tomorrow, what happens next week, what happens next year, as long as you're clear about what you're trying to accomplish, you're making your way there. But in the day to day, the week to week, the decisions that you're dealing with, you're going to be all over the place. Like, and you're going to be reacting to and
Mm.
dealing with all kinds of stuff.
And just so to
And
discern
so
where you
as you
are.
get
Yep.
into it,
Hmm.
just, yeah,
Yeah.
start where you are. Um, you don't have to have the entire thing figured out as you get started. And in some ways, don't even try, because if you think you do, it's not going to unfold that way, right? Right. So kind of, it's like that next step. Who are the next partners you need? What's the next conversation you need? What's the next move that's required here? Um, while keeping that sort of bigger vision in mind the whole time. Yeah.
So a lot of what you've been talking about so far today, which has just been it's been fantastic, really is about a mindset shift that's required of leaders across all of the fields here that incorporate faith-based development. How do you get leaders to move from a mindset of ownership and preservation to one of good stewardship and powerful kingdom impact?
Yeah. Well,
That's another pastor
um,
question.
it's a good one. It's true. People ask this all the time, and it's tough because how do you get anyone to move in any way that's sort of, it's
Right.
you can't get people to move, right? You can invite them to move, I think. You can
Inspire, encourage them.
encourage them. You
Right.
can open a way for them to move. You can give them the opportunity to move, but in the end, that's what it's going to take. And so, to some extent, I have a few different answers to this, but to some extent, I feel like it's happening regardless of whether people want to move or not. And so sometimes I encounter just resistance. Oh, we can't do that. It's not. There's no way we're going to be able to do that. There's no way we can do that. Our church won't do that. Our presbytery won't do that, or whatever, diocese, whatever. Well, fine. I mean, you can say that, and there's not much, but it's going to happen to you. This transition of property, this transition in the way people are engaging their faith, this change across the country is coming. It doesn't matter. You can say no, 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 but I'm sorry, but here
It's
you
coming
are,
to your
right? So
address, right?
it's coming to you.
Right.
So you want to get involved or not is kind of the choice, right? And maybe you need to bring again other people involved into this story that help think differently about it. Sometimes though, sort of urgency and need creates. Yeah, Rooted Good, we're big believers that constraints actually lead to creativity. So when you're stuck, that's when you
Mm.
have to figure out a new way, right?
Yeah.
If things are just rolling, you don't really have to figure out a new way. But when you're stuck, as in you've got $2 million to repair your building and you have 50 grand in the bank, like when you're stuck, like what some new way is now going to have to be explored, right? Because that way that you were on isn't going to go anywhere. The other thing that does sometimes help people is to think a little bit more about legacy. And I mean, you obviously this is something you've
I think I
written
wrote
for
about
in the
that for
book, and
somebody.
yeah, and I've learned a lot from you on this for sure. And the story of your church is beautiful there. But the idea of legacy, both looking back and looking forward, sometimes helps people. And so I will sometimes say to church leaders, imagine the reverse of your question. Imagine yourself coming to this location, this church location, 50 years from now, which is usually past the life of anyone that's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
in the room
yeah.
at that point. But imagine 50 years from now, you're coming back to this location and you have a chance to see what's going on here. What's happening on this piece of land that we currently today are stewards of? What's happening on this land 50
Mm.
years from now? And then what is it that we can do right now to shape the future that we want to see happening here 50 years from now? Is this thing just boarded up with a fence around it and it's empty and fallen down? Is it turned into some sort of completely unrecognizable housing development that's just serving nobody but wealthy people and wealthy investors? What is it? Like, what's going on here, right?
Yep.
And then envision what we want or what could be here. And it probably is a few different things. But let's set that path now. Like this, we are the people today.
Right.
We are the only people
Who
actually
can
right
set the
now
path?
that
Right.
have the
Yep.
opportunity to set that path.
That's
And if we
awesome.
just say we're going to do nothing about it, well, then we've set a path. There is a path. It's just a path towards probably not much great, right? To either just selling it off to who knows for who knows what, or empty and gone.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, again, I'm sort of bracketing out all the realities of neighborhoods and realities of things that come to bear on that. So I'm you're bracketing that out because those are all real. But if to the extent that we have the ability to shape the future of the land that we steward, this is the time to do it. Like this is it. We're it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so
Yep.
sometimes that does help people to see, okay, I see now what you're
Yeah.
talking about, right? Well,
Yeah.
your grandkids are here looking at this land,
Right.
or
Right.
their kids, your grandkids' kids are looking at this land. What did we do today to give that shape, to what they're experiencing in that spot 50 years
That's
from now?
good, man.
That sometimes helps a little bit. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's good, man. That's
Well,
good. That's
it's
good.
a great segue into looking forward, So what's next for you, Mark? As you look forward, where do you sense God leading you in your next season, or what's next for you? What are you looking forward to in your work?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. I so every day there's
Every
more
day
than we
there's a
can
lot
kind of
going
tackle,
on. Right?
honestly. Yeah. I mean, we've got some really, really interesting projects in Madison that are very fun to be a part of. So we're opening in October one of our earlier developments that's 26 units of workforce housing in a community center that a church is going to own. We have one breaking ground, a big affordable housing breaking ground in September. And then we've one in development, and we have some other ones that are in the earlier stages. So we've got a good pipeline of stuff that's really fun and exciting. I think broadly, we're interested in exploring, and I see we between both organizations actually, how in what other ways can we support nationally this work? And not because we are interested in kind of becoming national, like in some way, just that there's so much need.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing there's a real need in the handoff from the rooted good sort of material and the church getting clear about where it's going and getting building capacity, but the handoff from that into the next phase of sort of feasibility, pre-development,
Mm-hmm.
development. That handoff is tricky and it's like not happening as much as we'd like to see. So we're trying to think about how do we do that and how do we build?
Yeah.
Is it through sort of a growing affiliate thing or some sort of apprentice thing where we can raise up new additional folks
Yeah.
that can do this work?
Yeah.
Or there's so much bigger, the sort of the need for that
Yeah.
is so much bigger um, than the current set of people doing it.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And I mean, this is why I love what you're doing here, even with this podcast. Like the idea of just raising this profile and helping to sort of build capacity towards
Yeah.
faith-based
Yeah.
development. And I mean like actually faith-based development. I don't mean
Right.
developers acquiring church land
Right.
and then building the normal stuff they
Yes.
usually
No.
build. That's not what I
No.
mean. Like that
Mission
is
driven.
very uninteresting to
Right.
me, right? Yeah, because that's going to happen. If we don't figure it out, that's the other thing.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If we as the church do not figure out how to do this work and do not figure out how to invest in it, like I said, and invest in it in a more catalytic manner, and do the work in a sort of missional way, somebody else is just going to come and collect this land and make money off of it. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So one way or the other, the land's going to transform. It's just the question is, are we going to be the drivers of that, and are we going to drive it towards something beautiful, good, and life giving, or is it just going to sort of happen to us?
Yeah.
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 That's really the issue. And so trying to figure out, I guess, Tiffany, trying to figure out how to do that, how to
Yeah,
just be a part of that, right? And obviously, there's only so many hours in a
yeah,
day and so many,
yeah. It's
possibilities, but you do what you can,
yeah,
right?
it's
Yeah,
massive work, you know. I mean, the hope is, like you said, utilizing platforms like this and hoping that other like-minded organizations can share in these opportunities and share insights and ways of working so that that common mission can be utilized to transform people
absolutely.
at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah.
So what gives you the greatest hope for faith-based development looking forward?
Yeah, I mean, I have a bit, but I think it's an opportunity to be the church in new ways, potentially somewhat more faithful ways, or just more expansive ways, deeper ways. All of that I think is possible,
Yeah.
and more sustainable. So I think it can lead to to sort of greater depth, greater engagement, greater service to our neighborhoods, and potentially even more sustainably than than we've been living in the past. And that to me is exciting, and there's a great deal of possibility there. Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Awesome.
That's good, man. This has been great. We want to close it out as we do with every podcast we do and the guests that we have. We have what we call the faith-based development four. So we're going to ask you four questions. I'm going to ask you two. Tiffany's going to ask you two, and then we'll close out. What does faith-based development look like in action to you?
Mm. I feel like I gotta like get this right, but I don't know. I'll just take
You
a
got one
stab.
chance, Mark.
Right.
Bananagram, you got one chance.
I know, one chance, one chance. Um, it's hard to boil down to a word. I think we've been talking about it for the last 45 minutes. I think it's it's connecting a faith-based communities, theological, ethical, um, uh, passion and connection to God with the neighborhood and where God is at work in the neighborhood. It's connecting those things and then developing off of that and into that. That's I think what it
That's
is.
good.
Yeah.
That's good.
What is one opportunity or challenge the faith-based development ecosystem must address over the next 5 to 10 years?
I could list a few, but the one I'm really working on right now at that level is this money side. So we've been working a fair bit we've been doing this project called Fieldworks, and we're actually about to publish a position paper on this. So keep an eye out for that in the next month or two. But really, this idea that investor money, church money, there's billions of dollars of money in the church that's just doing its work over here, invested in, Tesla and Facebook and all this stuff. And meanwhile, we're struggling over here to do community development on church land. And that it's that pathway of some of that money, some of that church money actually getting off the sidelines and into this work. It's an opportunity. I mean, it really is an opportunity for that money to shape the future. And we've got to crack that somehow if we want to do this work well. Otherwise, all these projects are going to just roll back to pretty uninteresting things, or pretty extractive, right? And it's like that comment earlier of how much of the a rent someone pays that goes to the investor. We got to figure out how to fix that money problem a little bit. Yeah.
Who else in this ecosystem do we need to hear from?
Specifically on this podcast, or just
On this
Yes.
podcast?
I mean, there's no question about it. There's a lot of people doing great work. I mean, somebody that I think is super helpful, um, is Sibley Simon in California. I think you've met
Yep.
Sibley,
I've met.
but
Yep.
he's doing some amazing work in California with
Yep.
churches, helping them transition their land. He's just brilliant on the money side and on the development side, and really understands how this work works. Encourage everyone to look this guy up. New Way Homes is one of his projects. Um, but I actually also would say that I think one of the things that we have an opportunity to do is to learn from adjacent sectors. So we've been really trying to play around with that. We've been trying to learn from the arts, or learn even from, some people may have mixed feelings about this one, but learn even from the bourbon whiskey making,
Yeah. Yeah.
ecosystem in Texas,
Our buddy in
which is,
Austin, right?
yeah, this group in Austin, Still Austin, that had to build an entire ecosystem of grain growing
Yeah.
in order for their distillery to succeed,
Yeah.
I think is really interesting, because I think we have a similar thing going on
Yeah.
here. So we're all kind of doing our little stuff in our little area, but unless we can build the whole, we're all going to be stuck a bit. So if we're just all focused on only working in our own little thing and our own projects, it's going to be all sort of hampered by that. Like, and so like they had to create the whole value chain, the whole chain of grain for this thing to work for them in this bourbon distillery. And it helped all of his competitors as well. But they all now are doing better than if they hadn't invested in that. I think we have a similar thing going on here. Like I think we all are doing our work, and it's all really critical work, but we got to keep an eye to how we can help the whole system kind of flourish, and not just compete with each other, or not sort of just try to, we have a better way of doing it than they do, or
Being
whatever.
siloed.
It's not very fruitful at all. Yeah.
Okay, last one. If you could challenge every faith leader across America to do one thing for their community, what would it be?
This might be a bit of a cop-out, but I think I would actually just say listen. I would, because I don't think you can, I don't feel like I could answer that universally, but it's got to be a listen. It's got to be talk to the mayor of your town, talk to the principal of the school nearby, talk to the persons living on the street on the corner, talk to the shopkeeper of the little corner store, talk to the, listen. What keeps them up at night?
Yeah.
Ask all of those people what keeps them up at night. And what could the church do in that space, that keeps them up at night, and then move into that. Right. I think if everyone did that, that would be amazing. Just imagine if every church in America for the next 3 months did listening like that. And then maybe it's a little longer than 3 months, but let's just say 3 months we did it. Even just do that.
Right.
3 conversations in 3 months, every church in America did that. Imagine what would happen.
I love it.
I mean, that would be amazing.
Real transformation, right? Real transformation.
It would be. It would be, yeah. Yeah.
Well, Mark, we appreciate the time and your insights, your experience, just sharing your story with us. Where can people find you if they wanted to follow your work, some of the things you're working on, your projects? How do we find you?
So I have a website, melsdon.com. So it's my first initial last name, MELSDON.com, where I've got, a bunch of stuff I try to put up there, videos, films, podcasts, this will go up there when that gets, when it gets released, right? Other things, articles and such, and links to these other entities. And then rootedgood.org, and Threshold Sacred are all resources that people can look up. Threshold Sacred Development, Rooted Good. And we try to network out from there to lots of different people doing work in different organizations as well. So awesome. Those are all good starting points.
It's been great being with you. It's been great listening to you. We really are grateful to you.
Thank
man.
you. Thank you for the invitation. Lots of fun. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for joining us today. We hope this conversation encouraged you and inspired new possibilities for your community. Until next time, let's continue putting our faith into action, one community at a time.